Hey guys, Matthew, and today I want to bring you guys a very short video, hopefully, on the changelog to my league starting build that I made a video about a few days ago. Before that though, I wanted to basically take a couple seconds to talk about why I released the build guide video prior to manifesto or patch notes. The reason for that is that if you've played this game for a while now, it's actually pretty easy to take educated guesses on the things that GGG are not likely to nerf. It's impossible to predict every single thing that they will nerf, but trying to predict things that they're not likely to nerf is actually not that hard. Also, a lot of people were asking me for the build guides before so that they could practice and do bossing content with it prior to league starting. Now, let me tell you guys why or how that's possible. If I look at the Ritual right now, Ritual League, in the 3 days into the league, there was 39 people playing Blazing Salvo in a pool of 13,000, actually nearly 14,000 characters on the ladder. And the way that GGG goes about nerfing things is that they typically don't necessarily nerf things that are OP. They nerf things that are overplayed. If everybody plays the same builds, everybody plays the same skills, GGG don't like that, and they're going to try to nerf those in order for people to try to play different things. This is a business decision. You have to think about it this way. They want you to play more and more variety of skills in order to basically have more chance of you spending money to buy MTX for those variety of skills. It makes complete sense. But when something is completely underplayed and goes under the radar, even if it's very, very strong, such as my Blazing Salvo build, which I used a 0 link to kill Maven, you can check that video out as well, it's unlikely that they're going to nerf it. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, now there's 3 different things that have been nerfed in the build, or at least changed in some way, that I need to talk about. First off, let's talk about the very minor things. Wave of Conviction exposure has had 10% of its exposure reduced, which means just a few percent less damage on the build. It's very, very minor stuff. Vaal Righteous Fire, on the other hand, has had some pretty significant nerf. Instead of costing 30% life or ES, it's now costing you 60%. That's a big deal. Not only that, the buff that you get from it has been nerfed by 33%. Also pretty substantial. The thing is, if you look at that same Maven video that I talked about, in the entirety of the fight, I used Vaal Righteous Fire once, right? It's not a massive deal. Not only that, GGG has also buffed for single target when hitting unique enemies, the amount of souls that you get, which means you're going to be able to use this more often now. I believe they've doubled it, which technically means that Vaal Righteous Fire is going to be more consistent, but less bursty. I think that's a fine change, and overall, it's a very, very minimal change to the build. Okay, now let's talk about the most important thing, and that is going to be mines. So let me go ahead and read this, and then I'm going to try to explain what that means. Essentially, they're changing the way that reserving and costing is being, I guess you could say, used on different skills, be it either for your life or your mana or whatever else. So the most notable case of this is mine skills, which is basically one of the only thing in the game that has both a cost and a reservation. These all have a cost as well as a reservation, which must both be satisfied to use the skill, and can each be modified separately. This also means that mechanics that add to the cost of the skills, such as Voidbringer unique gloves, will now affect skills with reservations, which previously escaped this due to being unable to have both. Okay. Now let me explain what that means. So if I go in the game right now and I look at just a regular miner, and I have a Ball Lightning mine, which is reserving 6% of my mana. Technically, this skill is costing me 0 mana. And technically, if I had a ring, which would have, let's say, 6% reduced mana to non-channeling skills, it would still reserve 6 mana, which would mean that mod is entirely worthless for my build. What that also means is that if I had some nodes on the tree which are reducing the amount of mana reserved from the skill, right? So for example, these nodes over here, which is mana reservation for skills thrown with mines, or for example, you know, charisma with mana reserved, all these mana reserved nodes currently basically would affect the total cost of the Ball Lightning, or at least the total mana reserved, which currently is also the total cost. So let me try to give you an example to make this very clear. If I go ahead and throw the maximum number of mines that I have right now, which is 19, you'll see that my mana pool is never going below 81. If I had some sort of mana reduction node, let's say I could get 100% reduced mana reserved, technically I could throw these mines for free. Now, what these changes mean is that you'll have a portion, which the skill which is going to be mana reserved, and a portion which is going to be mana cost, and they're going to be treated differently. So right now, this skill is costing me six mana reserved. Let's just say that it's a 1-to-1, which means it's going to be 6 mana reserved, but also 6 mana cost. If I had, with the upcoming changes, a way to get 100% mana reserved or reduced mana reserved on my build, I would be able to get the mana cost, or sorry, the mana reserved to 0. That being said, if I was throwing mines, they would still have a mana cost, meaning no mana would be reserved, but my mana pool, it would still cost me mana. Therefore, it's impossible to get free mines, okay? So what that actually means, basically, with the upcoming changes, is that if you had a build, right, that was able to reserve the majority of its mana through auras, and then just keep a little bit of a buffer of mana in order to be able to throw mines that would get your mana pool to, let's just say, 0, you could actually endlessly throw mines because there was no cost, right? Now you're actually going to be, you're going to need to be a little bit more careful in how many mines you're throwing at which situation. Because let's say you did the same exact thing that I just mentioned, you threw all of your mines, which reserved the entirety of your mana pool alongside your auras, you would no longer be able to keep throwing mines. On top of that, you would no longer be able to use any of your other skills as well. So that basically just means that you'll have to be a little bit more careful when it comes to front loading your damage and pre-throwing your mines. That's pretty much it. The biggest nerf that this affects is builds that were basically able to increase the mana costs without actually increasing the amount of mana reserved. Now, this is actually interesting because it works both ways. Remember how I said that if you had a ring in the current state of the game, if you had a -6 mana cost of non-channeling skills, it would not affect your mines in any way. In the upcoming change, if you had that, you would actually be able to throw the mines for free, but of course they would still have the mana reserved associated with them, which means that if you want no change whatsoever when it comes to the upcoming change, you are going to need to make it so that your mines are free in terms of mana cost, and therefore the mana reserved is going to be unchanged compared to before, which means your character overall is going to feel the exact same, but of course you'll have to invest into some sort of reduced mana cost, be it on your rings or in other places as well. That's overall pretty much the entirety of the change. For my build, this means absolutely no change, as we already have a very big buffer of mana available to us, especially on the life build, but even on the low life build, the only thing is maybe we'll have to give up a couple levels on our precision in order to have a little bit more leeway on how much mana we have available to us when it comes to mana cost, but the mana reserved being unchanged. That's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Before I go, as always, I do want to say a huge thank you to my supporters. Sorry I didn't have that open. So Flame Scorpion, Richard, Willie D, Alex, Jordan, Emil, Raymond, Tim, Scott, Lost with the Map, Grimoire, Nathaniel, Kremis, Justin, Kevin, the other Justin, So Nice, Axel, Mercury, Bitizen, and of course, anybody else who has supported me in the past and anybody else who wishes to remain anonymous. Massive thank you to everybody listed below, and hopefully you guys have a good league start. I'll see you guys on Friday. Peace.